Our jetpack system is comprised of a carbon fiber jetpack and an industrial 40-foot hose that attaches to either a self-contained boat unit, also known as the pod, or to a standard jet ski, which acts as the power source for the jetpack. The engine pumps up to 1,000 gallons of water per minute up the hose to the pack to provide the propulsion to get you into the air. When you arrive at the flight location, you'll be greeted by your jetpack flight crew, who will introduce themselves and get you ready for your flight. The first step will be to get you fitted for a wetsuit, which they'll help you into. Not everyone is a surfer, so you may not know the tricks to getting into a wetsuit, so our staff will help you out and make sure you've got the right fit. Remember, the better the fit, the warmer and more comfortable you'll be during your flight. Once you're in your wetsuit, you'll get your life vest, which will be tightened up so it's snug, but not constricting. The walkie-talkie helmet is an important part of the flight experience, since it allows the instructor to communicate with you throughout your flight. It should be tight enough to not slip down over your eyes while you're flying. Once the helmet is fitted, the instructor will test the volume and adjust as necessary, using special magnets to turn the volume up or down. Keep in mind that the volume needs to be loud enough to be heard over the sound of the jets. Once you're seated in the pack, the control arms will be adjusted so your arms sit comfortably at a 90-degree angle, which is optimal for flight control. You'll be strapped securely into the jetpack with a 5-point safety harness, which utilizes a quick release system to allow you to instantly release from the harness. To release, you'll either twist the buckle to the right or left, or simply pull the lever to release the straps, depending on the harness system. Since the pack is buoyant, in case of an emergency, you can unbuckle and leave the pack in the water, where it will float until it's picked up by one of our team members. To start your flight, you'll walk out to chest-deep water and turn so you're parallel to the beach to allow the instructor to get a good profile view. At that point, you'll want both hands on the control arms and both arms at shoulder level, which we call neutral or starting position. At some locations, you may be starting from the boat, so you'll take a big step into the water while you'll start your flight. Don't worry though, the pack and the life vest will float you right to the surface after you jump in. When you jump into the water, be sure to keep your hands on the control arms and keep the arms at shoulder level. If you drop the control arms, the pack will naturally push you forward. If you try to doggy paddle, it is very difficult to get upright, so all you want to do is raise the control arms and bicycle kick with your legs. Notice the difference between a swim kick and a bicycle kick. The bicycle kick pulls your torso up out of the water, while the swim kick simply pushes you forward. To ensure you're comfortable in the water and you're able to get yourself upright in the pack, we'll often do a quick swim test, where we'll have you let go of the control arms to see how the pack pushes you forward. To get your face back out of the water, you simply need to grab the control arms, raise your arms to shoulder level, and do a bicycle kick with your legs. Another way to get upright in the water is to grab the control arms and roll to the right or left, which will bring you to a sitting position in the pack. For your first flight, your instructor will be controlling the throttle for you, either via a remote transmitter or via the jet ski throttle system, which means he'll be throttling you up and throttling you down. By taking the throttle out of the equation for your first flight, you're able to focus on learning the fundamentals of steering and flight control, and you're able to do more advanced maneuvers, since the instructor can quickly throttle you down if you get into trouble. After the engine is started, your instructor will talk to you through your walkie-talkie helmet and slowly increase the throttle to get you started. On an upcoming flight, you may be eligible to take throttle control. For your first flight, though, just focus on learning the fundamentals and having fun. Once the engine is started, You'll want the bottom of the control arms right at water level, and as the instructor throttles you up, you'll slowly bring the control arms down together, keeping them level and right above the surface of the water. If one of the control arms drops, it will force you into a sharp turn toward the pod, and the instructor will have to throttle you down to prevent possible impact. The most important thing with initial movement is keeping the control arms level. If you let the control arms drop below the surface of the water, it's going to bring your head underwater. Alternatively, if you raise the control arms too high above the water, you won't be able to gain forward momentum, which is very unstable. Once you understand the basics of getting started, you can get into the air very quickly. You can see the proper starting sequence here, with the arms level, slowly coming down together as the throttle is increased. While the control arms can move independently, it's very important for you to keep them as level as possible, even with steering. To turn the jetpack, you'll want to keep the control arms level and simply look and lean in the direction you want to turn. It only takes a very subtle movement to steer the jetpack. Once you get to about waist level, you can practice steering by looking left and right. It is important to note that when you make a turn, you need to correct out of it to avoid turning too sharply and coming back toward the pod. If you find yourself turning one direction on initial startup, you can raise that control arm to get yourself back on a straight line. Keeping yourself going straight is the best way to get yourself started. If you are unable to keep your forward momentum on your own, we may use a technique called shadow flying, where one of our instructors will get into the water with you to help keep your arms level as you get started. With this technique, the instructor will face you in the water and hold the control arms below your hands to help keep them in the proper positions. The instructor will also demonstrate what happens when you drop one of the arms and how to correct out of it. Once the instructor helps you get started, he'll release you to continue flying. Just be sure to keep the control arms level and listen to the instructor to maintain your momentum. Oscillation is when your legs swing from over-adjusting the control arms up and down. It's a very common occurrence with first-time pilots. To prevent oscillation, all you need to do is focus on very small movements. When the instructor tells you arms up, think 1 millimeter rather than 1 inch. You'll be surprised by just how little it takes to make the jetpack go where you want it to go. To stop oscillation after it starts, the instructor will reduce the throttle and instruct you to dip your feet in the water, which will instantly stop the swinging. For your first flight, you want to avoid hovering, which occurs when you let the control arms go up too high, causing a loss in forward momentum. From a hover, it is very easy to go into an unintentional backflip or sharp turn toward the pod. Colliding with the pod is the main thing we want to avoid. If the instructor sees you slowing your speed and nearing a hover, he or she will instruct you to bring the arms down to regain good forward momentum. If the hover is not corrected, the instructor will have to kill the throttle and drop you in the water. Once you've mastered the basics, you can start having some fun with more advanced maneuvers. Keep the arms nice and stable, with your feet right at water level, and soon you'll be walking on water. Climb the invisible staircase as the instructor throttles you up to do a perfect stairway to heaven. If you demonstrate good controlled turns, the instructor may give you the chance to do some donut turns, which you'll pivot off the hose as you chase the pod around in circles. An underwater submarine is one of our most popular and exciting tricks. When the instructor counts to 3, quickly drop your arms to waist level to dive under the water. Hold it for 3 seconds and bring the arms back up to do a dramatic submarine, complete with a rooster tail on entry.